Okay. Duopoly. Duopoly. Monopoly is really good, right? If you have one and you own everything. If there's 5 companies, that works. It turns out that duopoly, where there's 2, doesn't work so well. If there's just 2 companies, it doesn't work that well. Why? Well, most games are not winner take all. Okay? Most games are not what we call zero-sum games. In a duopoly, if I take business away from you, you lose exactly the amount of business that I take. So every customer company A takes away from company B is a win for A and a loss for B. If there's 5 companies, well, A can steal from B while C is stealing from A, and the impact, it's not what we call necessarily a zero-sum game. What happens to B doesn't tell you what happens to A. There's all of this interaction going on between all of these companies. Okay? But in duopoly, it's face-to-face, right? So the classic example of this duopoly thing is we have a little village here, and there's 2 wells in the village. So everybody has to get their water from one of these 2 wells, and they're both at opposite ends of town. Okay? Well, what's going to happen? Well water, if the price of these 2 wells is the same, so let's say it's $1 to go fill up your bucket at the well. Which well are you going to go to? Well, you're going to go to the closer of the 2 wells, right? If it's $1 at each well, and one well is a 10-minute walk and one well is a 40-minute walk, you're going to the 10-minute walk. So everybody's going to go to the well that's closer to them. Now, what happens if the well over here decides, this guy, says 99 cents. So this guy is still $1, this guy's at 99 cents. Well, that means some people are going to decide the penny saving is worth a little bit further walk, and some customers are going to stop going this way and start going this way. And every customer that starts going this way is a loss to this guy. What's this guy going to do? Well, yeah. Right? He's got to at least lower to 99, but he's likely to lower to 98 and pull some, right? And then this guy's going to go to 97, this guy's going to go to 6, and this guy's going to go. It turns out that duopolies, since it's what we call, again, a zero-sum game, it's a zero-sum game. The two of them always add up to the total. So everything I win is a loss for you, everything I lose, right? Except that we both can lose. So both of them have an incentive to keep lowering their prices to steal business away from the other. And if they keep going, they're going to end up giving that water away for free. Okay? Duopoly is a horrible, horrible situation to be in for a business. Unless they can do what? Yeah, collude, work together. What they need to do is become friends and agree to sell their water for $1.25. Right? The problem with that is when they make these agreements, there's advantages to people cheating. But ignoring that, duopoly. We see this all the time when new professional sports leagues have started up. So the NFL was doing fine. They were making a lot of money. Then in the 60s, the AFL started up. Now, you only have so many stars, right? If people go out to see Tom Brady play, or they go out to see Aaron Donald play, or they go out to see, Peyton Manning play, whoever it is, a star player, then the 2 leagues start fighting over the stars. NFL players were making $10,000 a year. They were making such little money that they had outside jobs because they didn't make enough money playing football to support their families. Then this guy Joe Namath is graduating from college, and he's this great star quarterback. there's a bidding war for him between the two leagues, and he gets paid $500,000 at a time when people are making $10,000. It almost bankrupts both football leagues, and what they have to do is merge. So the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets used to be in the AFL, and they come over and now they're part of the NFL. But the two leagues have to merge. They have to work together or they're going to kill each other. And it happened in football, it happened in basketball, it happened in hockey, it's happened in car racing. It happens all over the place in sports where if you get two of something, it's disaster. One works, three works, two, disaster. Right? Game theory tells us about these things. It teaches us. Okay? They both are going to lose. In a duopoly, if they don't collude, they both lose. They're going to kill each other. All right? So again, the game theory solution is collusion. In an oligopoly, the businesses should figure out ways to work together. And the car industry used to do it. They can't do it now because there's Japanese and German cars and Korean cars, and there isn't this little group of 2 or 3 car companies that everybody buys. Before the invasion of foreign car companies in the 70s, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler owned, 85, 90, 95% of the U.S. car market, and the 3 of them could collude pretty easily. But now that there's so many car companies and they're scattered all over the world, that just doesn't work. But the game theory solution to an oligopoly is for them to try to figure out some way to collude, to work together. And they're going to try to engage in what we call non-price competition. So just like in monopolistic competition, right, you're going to use advertising and you're going to do stuff. In oligopoly, this is generally even more noticeable, that the companies try to compete. United's ads generally don't say, hey, we're cheaper than American. They say we have more legroom, or we have better planes, or we go to better destinations, or our flight attendants are smiling and happier. They compete on things other than price, right? Nobody's something cheap in the air. There's something special in the air, or, some beautiful little catchphrase. The problem with collusion is just like the Patriots, there's an advantage to cheating. So if 5 companies get together and they all agree on what to do, it's likely that 1 or more of them will cheat on the deal. OPEC gets together all the time and decides how much oil they're going to pump out of the ground, and each country gets assigned a certain amount of oil, and some of them always cheat because there's a lot of money to be made. If you're a cheater, there's money to be made because everybody else is following the rules, following this deal. The cheaters can prosper, right? If nobody catches them and nobody punishes them for it, cheaters can, in fact, prosper. You can win Super Bowls by cheating, and maybe they fine you a couple $100,000, and who cares? Okay? So, what happens in the 1800s is businesses all over the United States, instead of just quietly colluding, are publicly colluding. We have monopolies in some industries, and in other industries we have what are called cartels. We have groups of businesses that literally get together. They rent a ballroom in New York, and they all sit around the table and they decide, the government's going to issue a contract for a new ship. Who's going to make the steel for that ship? And they decide. And they take the territory and they say, Cleveland belongs to this company, and Cincinnati belongs to this company, and Chicago belongs. And they split territories up, and they intentionally and publicly collude. So if they're not a monopoly, there's all this very visible collusion. It's called the robber baron era. The Andrew Carnegie's and J.P. Morgan's and those kind of folks. Okay, it's an interesting study if you want to study it. The government's response to that is to pass something called antitrust laws. And the basic antitrust law of the United States was written by this guy, John Sherman, whose brother is William Tecumseh Sherman, who's U.S. Grant's right-hand man during the Civil War, right? Burns Atlanta, marches to the sea. That's his brother. So John Sherman, here's a quote from him. If we will not endure a king as a political power, we should not endure a king over the production, transportation, or sale, or of any of the necessaries of life. Okay? So, if you're a farm company and you control all of the, well, there's a cartel over whiskey production, for example. There's a cartel over sugar production. These cartels. Other people are controlling businesses by controlling the railroads. So if you control the railroads, you can make deals with your friends, charge higher prices to the people you don't like. You can dominate a lot of what happens in the country by controlling the railroad system. Okay? So production, transportation, sale of these things are being dominated by a few rich people, and Sherman writes this law that's intended to stop that, which we call the Sherman Anti-Trust Act. Passed in 1890, it's not enforced until the 1900s, really, in the way it's intended. It says you cannot have a contract in restraint of trade. So you cannot sign a contract with a railroad that says, if you carry my product, you can't carry my competitor's product. You can't sign a contract. Ford can't sign a contract with the railroads and say, you can't, if you want my business, you can't have General Motors' business. You can't sign a contract that's in restraint of trade. Number two, you cannot be a monopoly, you cannot attempt to become a monopoly, and you can't conspire with someone to become a monopoly. So it's illegal if you're the only one, that's just illegal. Okay? Number two, if you go out and do things like, interfering, your competitor's trying to build a new factory, and you arrange for the steel shipments to be cut off so they can't get steel to build their factory, now you're attempting to monopolize. And you can't call up your competitor and go, hey, let's get control of this industry. Let's monopolize. So if you're United Airlines, you cannot call up American Airlines and decide what the fare should be between LA and Vegas. And in fact, the airlines got caught not calling each other up, but they got caught sending each other secret messages through the big reservation system and were fined hundreds of millions of dollars by the government for discussing their prices among each other. Right? There are both civil and criminal penalties. If you think, and people have done this, if you think that Microsoft being a monopoly has harmed you, you can sue Microsoft yourself. So it doesn't require the government to go out and sue. You can be the aggrieved party. You can be a person who was damaged, and you can sue under the antitrust laws yourself. And if you win, you get 3 times whatever the jury awards you. So if the jury decides that Microsoft was evil and they cost you an extra $500, Microsoft has to pay you $1,500. Okay? If you were damaged $10 million, Microsoft has to pay you $30 million. Whatever the damage is, they got to pay you 3 times. Sometimes that works out funny where there's a lawsuit and the aggrieved party wins, but the jury gives them $1. And then the company actually has to pay $3, but treble damages. Okay? All of this comes out of the Commerce Clause in the Constitution. So there's a clause in the Constitution called the Commerce Clause, and it says Congress has the right to regulate commerce among the states. So anything that passes from one state to another, Congress can control. And it's an unlimited power. There's no limits in the Constitution. There's no word that says this or that, can, can't. Just says Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce among the states. So if you're a business and you operate in more than one state, if your product is moving between states, you are under regulatory control of the federal government, and they can decide whether how you're selling your product is legal or illegal. Okay? If you're only working inside the boundaries of one state, which is very difficult to do in the modern world with the internet and all that, But if your business exists and operates only inside of one state, the federal antitrust laws don't apply to you because you're not engaged in interstate commerce.